Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Brown Bag Bets, powered by BetSperts. We are your daily dose of quick hit handicapping and sports betting picks. I'm Alex Christensen, and joining me always in a lovely, is that flannel, or is it just kind of a nice pattern, Andy? I like that.
You know, it's cold this time
Very
of year.
becoming.
It's flannel season.
It is. Maybe we'll start doing flannel Fridays. Sorry that I didn't get the message. We'll work on that for next week.
Full on thing, but no, it's cold, man. We're in a snowstorm. We finally got snow. It's nasty up here, so had to bundle up, get ready for the weekend. Wild card weekend's over. Divisional's always the best weekend. Honestly, I think
It's a fun weekend.
It's better than the other ones. So I'm pretty jacked for that. Pretty jacked for a lot of basketball. There's a ton of games on a Friday. Obviously, Saturday's a big one. But last week, somebody asked a question. We didn't have time for it. We said we'll get to it next week. And then we had guests like 3 straight days. If you haven't checked out any of those, some of them are still pretty evergreen. You know, we talked about one and dones. That's some of those haven't even started yet. If you want to check that out from Tuesday's live stream, talk to the Bear Felica on Wednesday. All those are available on the YouTube channel if you want to go back and watch any of that. But anyway, the question was, and I didn't go back and find the question verbatim or who asked it, so I just wrote it. Somebody asked about teasing basketball. Should I ever tease basketball? Guy in the chat from last week. And I mean, the short answer, and we did give the short answer, it was no. And I made the ugliest chart ever to explain this quick, but these are margins of victory. When people talk about key numbers in the NFL, you know, say the 3, the 7, the 10, things like that, there's some truth to that. If you look, 13.68, this is just the last 10 years of the NFL I grabbed because I was trying to grab a big enough sample to compare against the NBA stuff we had, which there's a lot more games in the NBA. But you can see there's chunks, almost 14% of the games land on the 3. A big chunk of games land on the 7. But the biggest key to teasing basketball compared to the NFL, in the NFL, I can move 6 points. So if I go across the 8 through the 3 or the 7 through the 2, and I just start adding up those percentages, those are percentages of all the games that land on that number. I can eat up 40% plus. So I'm saying I'm moving across 40% of the margins of victory in the NFL by buying these 6 points. But yeah, my garbage conditional formatting, I just picked the easiest one. But I mean, if you look, there are some spots where you can say, well, there's some areas there where 6% of the games fall on 5, 6, 7, 8. There's some chunks there. But I mean, Alex, have you ever seen a book that gave you more points in the NBA? For the same.
No, and I like what you did here. This is a really helpful graphic for the people. But yeah, you've done a nice job walking through it. You can see there are clear spots in the NFL where there's value, whereas the NBA, you kind of have a uniform distribution. And then when we first got this question, I thought, like, even before we looked into this math, you get 6 points to tease a football game, but you only get 4 points to tease a basketball game. Like that, just like, okay. So, I mean, honestly, like when I started to think about it, I haven't put too much effort into it. I think you could almost make a case that you should get more points when you're teasing through the NBA as you start to look at some of this stuff. Again, especially the way you laid it out, that you get to buy across, almost 40% of the possible outcomes there is just nuts. And especially, again, in a sport where in the NFL you have less possessions, there's less scoring, so points are inherently more valuable versus the NBA where you're going to have at least 200 points in a game. I mean, 4 points either way is, much less of an impact. So it's clearly something I don't think either one of us could advocate doing.
No, and I did, I left out the bigger scores. Most of the games don't land on numbers bigger than this. A lot of it is within the first 10 points, but even the part of moving across that could get you the most of the NBA distribution would be somewhere in the 8.5 to 4.5, or it was 7.5 to 3.5. You get like 25%. So it's just a massive difference, and you're only getting 25% of it. Don't tease basketball. And then as far as somebody just asked totals versus spread, I mean, think about the fact that we just talked about these key numbers in the NFL. There's really there's some signal for some key numbers in totals, but at the same time, it's just you're never going to find a spot where you can cross 40% of the totals with the 6 points. Like you're not going to find. That's why really it's a sucker bet in general. There's just a few spots in the NFL where it does work out. So please don't use your teasers when you're doing basketball. I don't have anything up here for college basketball, but it's going to be very similar to the NBA. There's not going to be a difference there. So take it easy on that. If you have any questions, maybe we'll do something a little deeper when I get a chance to do some actual videos with a little more. That's as far as I wanted to go with a graphic visual aid for the week. But
yeah, you can, of course, DM us any questions you have. Either one of us, you can find us on Twitter and also the Brown Bag Bets account at Brown Bag Bets. Send us any more questions and thoughts you have there. And if, we need to maybe do a longer form dive into this again and pick out some stuff, because I can see there's a bunch of questions here floating in the chat. And Andy, I don't know if you want to bring any of these up, but I don't know if we necessarily have perfect answers for them right now. So maybe we'll circle back.
Yeah, this is a good one. Basketball teasers are sucker bets. NFL, somebody did ask totals versus spread. Yeah, I mean, just the NFL totals, like I said, there's not going to be a range of 6 points, let's say from and I guess I could run this. I'm kind of curious now to see what the biggest range, if you were to tease an NFL total, what the best would be. But at the same time, those tend to, we're going to have varying sample sizes, because I'm not going to want to say all games land on, or 10% of games land on this number, because there's a really big difference depending on what the total is or what the spread is. So you run into sample size problems with the NFL as well. That's why I pretty much just stick to those sides.
Yeah, and it's, again, the totals is a similar argument. You're getting 7 points in something that is going to have, 50 total points, if you will, 40 points versus a spread that has, what's a max of 14, 17 maybe.
And the last thing is, you always should know that no matter what you're dealing with, whether you're looking at the odds of -110, you're looking at odds of, if it's in decimal odds, if you're looking at fractional odds, 3-1, or if you're looking at a percentage, you're looking at the same thing. Everything is just a percentage. -110 is just 52.38. So what happens when you tease 6 points? You need to cover that leg 72% of the time. They say, if you need to win 52.3% of your bets to break even if you're betting -110. If you're betting -261, which is what you are on a teaser leg, you need to cover that 72% plus. So if 61% of the outcomes, are covering, it's a long-term loser. And you're actually doing a 7-point dog, or 7 point. Oh, that is a 6-point teaser. So then the further you get out, if you're buying a 6.5 point, 7.5, eventually you're up to the point where you need to cover those legs 75% of the time to make it worth it. So it's a real slippery slope getting too wild with these. So take it easy. Tonight, we're not teasing anything. We're just playing some totals. NBA totals.
We are.
You finally have an over. Talk to me.
We do. We finally have an over. The New York Knickerbockers are playing the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I actually played this at over 199 when it opened. Now, both of these teams generally have their totals moved down just a touch, but I figured hanging on 199, people would realize it's not the mid-2000s or late 90s here. I mean, I can't remember the last time I saw a total this low. I mean, I'll have to go back and double check that, see if it has been a while, but the numbers here don't add up for me as I start to look at some of my models and I start to look at what pace I'm kind of expecting and the offensive rating, especially considering the Knicks have Obi Toppin starting to come back and being healthy. I have this game at about 205 points. So again, was happy to grab over 199. I'm looking here again, happy to grab over 197. I mean, again, these teams have been under teams so far this season. So I think maybe the market has kind of piled on and started to push these totals a little bit too low. So, as someone that likes to look at performances of teams on spreads, on totals throughout the year, what I generally find is it gets to a point and then you'll find it starts to balance out a little bit because books continue to adjust. And I think maybe we've got a little bit of an over adjustment here. So happy to grab an over for once in a while. What do you think, Andy?
I like it. I like to cheer for points every once in a while, and even if it is with these two teams.
Just to balance things out here, we're having over, but I'll go back to my roots, to what I really like to do here. Dallas, Milwaukee, we're going to take under 228 here. As I start to look at some of these numbers here, Dallas has been a team with a decent offensive rating, but is playing at a very slow plodding pace. They're one of the slower teams in the league. I think adding Porzingis back is only going to make that worse. We'll see how many minutes he plays, but I think that just kind of muddies the water a little bit and lends itself to a slower game here. Milwaukee has actually been more of an over team this year, but as I start to look at some of the matchups here and start to look at some of the more recent games, I think that we will see maybe a little bit of a slower pace here. So grabbed under 228. There is actually maybe some 228 and a halves around. So some pretty solid numbers there. Again, I like the under here in this game.
I like it. And yeah, we spent quite a bit of time actually on the is Charles Oakley starting? That total's nuts. Charles, is he allowed back in the building yet? I'm not even sure.
Probably not.
Probably not. That's a bad.
I don't think he would go. Knowing Charles Oakley would take a lot.
I think he's probably still pretty mad about that. Yeah, I would not have wanted to been those security guards. But anyway, I won't spend a lot of time on my basketball picks because I don't have a lot to say about them ever. I'm not gonna hit you with narratives on these. Although yesterday I had a fun one where I could not make sense of something. Something I've really been looking at too. I added columns to what I'm looking at for visual help on my end where I can't keep track of who's taking off and who's playing. So I've added some columns to just display how many games teams have played. And I know like yesterday I played Pacific. They hadn't played in like 3 weeks. They played like 4 games before that. You're going to have some weird situations. There's teams that have played a dozen games. There's teams that hardly have played at all. So another one of those. Merrimack, I'm going a lot off my priors on this one. Honestly, I put it in bet spurts. It's the same bet, but I can't get as much on this because it's an extra game anyway. So maybe take it easy on these extra games. They get a little buck wild. This has a 6-digit rotation number. Don't go crazy. But the Merrimack Warriors plus 3.5. I think I even found a 4 out there. Bowling Green, I bet this at like 4.5, and it has gone the other way. So you can get an even better number on the Falcons in some late week action. I know it's not football, but still fun. And then these 3 are all, I think this is all just a bunch of Texas ball. UTSA Roadrunners plus 8.5. You could find some 9s if you really hunt. Texas State Bobcats plus 5.5. That's still available out there. And the Miners, these guys can't drink yet. UTEP plus 6. I will take that. And I should have a fat, we don't do this on Saturdays, but I should have a fat card for Saturday as well, just because of the fact that there's such a glut of games on every Saturday. I'm trying to work on that this afternoon so I can have some stuff out early, hopefully. But just those 5 for me today, and then it's football time.
Love it.
So I don't know. Let's just you want to start with first touchdown stuff? We only have 4 games today.
All right. Well, this weekend. But yeah, we'll jump into first touchdown score. It's a lot of fun for us. We've had a couple of these this year. We'll see if we can get lucky again this weekend. We'll start with the games that we've got on Saturday. Green Bay versus Los Angeles. The Rams are a really tough team to attack this week for me from a prop perspective. As we talked about yesterday when we were talking about the teaser leg and how much we like the Packers as a teaser leg, there's just a lot of bad scenarios here for the Rams, and it's hard to figure out, what they're going to do. At the same time, the Packers are really only exploitable against the running back. And as you start to look at that market for Los Angeles, it's kind of murky, and some of the pricing isn't very good. Cam Akers, I believe, is somewhere in the range of 7-1, so nothing too exciting there. So we go back to some of the other spots here, as I start to look at some of the Packers, obviously it's tough to find value on guys like Devontae Adams. They're obviously priced very high, as well as Aaron Jones. But we do find some values as you go a little down the list. I like Robert Tonyan here. The Rams are pretty rough against tight ends. I believe they're 12th or 13th in the league in terms of giving up touchdowns to tight ends. Tonyan, a great target for Aaron Rodgers down there, has got a lot of targets in the red zone. So happy to grab him at 10-1. And then Aaron Rodgers himself to run one in at 30-1 here. Just a really nice number for me as I start to look at the Rams again. Very susceptible to touchdowns from the quarterback. I believe they're about 10th. I think they're tied for 11th, actually, in terms of giving up touchdowns there. So happy to grab both of those numbers. Again, Tonyan 10-1, Rodgers at 30-1. As you start to look at Buffalo,
I'm a Tonyan guy.
Gotta love that. He's got a lot of touchdowns this year. I think we've won with him a couple times. So we'll go back to the well there. Buffalo and Baltimore. We talked about this game a little bit yesterday as well. As you start to think of the style here, you'd want to look at some Buffalo receivers. Those prices are really bad, and the Ravens, again, are pretty solid against that unit. From the other perspective, Baltimore, as you start to look at some of the running backs, there's a lot of options there, and the pricing again isn't in line. But both of these teams give up a lot of touchdowns to quarterbacks. I was surprised to see that Buffalo was essentially tied for first in terms of giving up quarterback touchdowns. The Ravens, I believe, tied for 7th or 8th. In that same statistical category as we have the prices here. Jackson 8-1, Allen 9.5-1. Happy to grab both of those numbers. I think there's a great chance we see the quarterback run it in. Then we'll go to Sunday as Andy flips through. It's nice that he does.
Not only scrambling, but like designed runs for those guys.
I think so.
Will take the ball.
I like Jackson honestly the best of this group
sure.
right here. I mean, I think there's a great chance he runs that in. Kansas City and Cleveland, kind of the opposite of what we discussed for the Green Bay Rams game. I think I know what Cleveland's going to try to do. They're going to try to run the ball a lot. I think that Baker Mayfield's going to have some chances. The Kansas City Chiefs are tied with the Bills actually for third there and giving up rushing touchdowns to quarterback. So happy to grab the 50-1, which frankly is a little bit of an off-market number. I would play this down as low as like 35, maybe even 30. And then Austin Hooper, second most targets on the Browns this year. Kansas City very susceptible to giving tight end touchdowns, and normally priced again closer to like 15-1. So we're getting some value here with Cleveland being the dog. Hopefully we get lucky here, and Kansas City maybe gets a field goal on their first drive, or Cleveland's lucky enough to win the toss here and get the first touch of the ball going down the field. But have some chances here to attack some underdog players, which I always like.
I like that as well, especially when you find a 50. And yeah, shop around, because there are just in any prop market, and I'll get to props later, but in any prop market, there's going to be some massive differences. And brings us to Sunday night, Sunday afternoon.
Sunday. You start to look at these matchups here. Again, we've got a pretty tight game. Both teams good at defending quarterbacks here. And again, Tampa, Tom Brady hasn't really run a lot this year. Drew Brees has a little bit, but don't love the numbers, don't love the matchups here. So we'll cross them off. Again, running back and wide receiver prices here are really tough given some of the superstar names you have there. But as you start to look at the tight end position, these are some of the best numbers we've gotten on these guys all season. Yeah. And again, I think it's because of some of the superstar wide receivers, some of the superstar running backs we have here, guys like Kamara, guys like Godwin, guys like Mike Evans, as you start to look at those names. But Cook and Gronk here, Cook's usually in like the 12-1 range, Gronk usually in like the 14-15-1 range. So we're getting some better numbers than normal. And New Orleans and Tampa Bay, tied for 7th in the league in terms of giving up receiving touchdowns to tight ends. So love the opportunity, love the price. I think this is a great matchup here. So happy to grab both of these guys at good numbers.
I like where your head's at, and I'm gonna actually win one of these this weekend, I think. And yeah, some of these tight end prices are a little silly, I think, for sure. I didn't get crazy this weekend with some props. I'm probably gonna look at player props. Are these any touchdown props? These are first touchdown scores. You got to score the first touchdown of the game. So, and I know people who do like to take some money and put it on anytime touchdown score for those guys too, because it does sting to watch your offense do exactly what you thought they'd do, but they lost the coin toss and it's the second touchdown of the game. Like that's awful. So anytime touchdown score, there are books that offer the very next touchdown to be scored, or it's basically the next first touchdown score market resets every time there's a score. We can bet who will score the next one. I know for sure a couple of the legal books have that. So take a look at stuff like that. And I didn't play a lot of props. I didn't get nuts. I'm going to look at player props tonight into tomorrow morning, maybe put something up on my Instagram. But I did play some most receiving yards. I'll make that a little smaller. Ooh. Shit. It's hard to read. Let's make it big. Most receiving yards, Lazard and MVS. I mean, ad nauseum with the coverage on, Devontae Adams going up against a great cornerback. So I guess if you want to give me huge numbers on these guys have both popped off for like a 150-yard game this year. It's still, I believe a good offense always beats a good defense. A great offense, a great quarterback can still beat a good defense. It's obviously the best defense left in the playoffs, maybe the best in the league, but these numbers are kind of silly. It just takes a long ball or two if you're putting, your off corner on either of these guys. So big numbers. I got these at 2 different books. You do have to shop to get these. Most rushing yard Dobbins 8-1. I like that with some of the bigger names taking up a chunk of the market. He's been great this year. They've been willing to feed him. The fact that we've had some injuries there have gotten him more of a carry share. So 8-1 on that. And then Bucks lowest scoring 8-1. I do believe in the Saints pass rush. I know Marpet's back. They might not get to Brady as much, but we've seen the Bucks lay an egg a couple times once against these very Saints. So the fact that the Rams are eating up like 50% of the market share on this prop, I'm happy to take a flyer on Bucks 8-1 and rely on my New Orleans Saints defense. That's probably all I'm going to do for those. I didn't like anything in the passing one. It was, there's a couple of games lined in the mid to high 50s. So you're going to have some passing obviously going on in Kansas City. I don't think there's much value there. As always, if you do have some prop that you love, hit us up on Twitter with it. Respond to this post or wherever, or just hit us up on Twitter on the DMs. I like reading those. Every once in a while, somebody gives me a winner. Yeah, I mean, Rams lowest score prop, it's like even money. That's why I'm
plus 105.
That's what I was referring. So like when something's even money, it's eating up almost half of the market. So that's why I think you're getting some value on some of these other teams. Just because
I like that Tampa Bay pick. That's solid.
And the Rams very well may score 7 points, and that's fine. I'm willing to take a bigger number on someone else. And like I said, player props, I'll probably put something out tomorrow if I find anything I like. And if you have anything you like, hit me with them because I like getting free winner. Every once in a while. Kamara hit for me last week or 2 weeks ago. That was awful nice. And
yeah,
it's fun, especially in a game. I'm not going to have a lot of action on these games outright. So it's fun to have some of these props going something to cheer for as I'm watching.
Yeah, I think like we talked about last week, I mean, the best part of some of these games everyone gets a little bummed out. The spreads are pretty tight. The totals are pretty much where they're supposed to be at this point. But because you have all these other interesting markets to look at, that makes her good advantages. Yeah, Lamar Jackson over rushing yards. I like that. I think we're going to see Baltimore run a lot. That's why I like your Dobbins pick there at 8-1. I think that's very nice.
Especially if it snows. I think that's good for the Ravens. So, all right, quick recap, and then we'll send you off to your weekend. Knicks Cavs over wherever this number is dropped to at this point, and then Mavs Bucks under 228 for tonight. And let me look. Let's see if any of these are afternoon games. Sometimes I like that. Yeah, actually, my Merrimack game is 3 p.m. Central, and then the rest of them are 6:30 tonight. So Merrimack, Bowling Green, UTSA, Texas State, and UTEP for a 3-pack of Texas schools. And with that, we're off until Monday. Don't forget to sign up for WinBet over the weekend when you're flying into Colorado to go skiing or you're heading down the turnpike to stop into Jersey because you can get a $500 free bet. And there's only a few days left. Only a few days left to get that sweatshirt. Alex.
It's a sweet sweatshirt.
Catch you Monday.
Have a great weekend, everybody.